Recording. Okay. So I was actually going to start this holistic goal setting workshop with a little exercise, but there's still a few more people that said they might be coming. So I'm gonna just tell you a little bit about myself really quickly to start, and then we'll get into that right away. So I'm Diane. I know a lot of your faces, and I just want to thank you so much for coming to listen in to this perspective that I've kind of just really only realized in the last couple of months. But it's one of those things, right? I think I've known this for a long time about myself. For whatever reason, it just percolated to the surface right now. And I just wanted to share it. So thanks for coming to listen and to be a part of that. I have a business as a wellness consultant. So that has a few different elements. I work with holistic nutrition. That's a big foundation of what I do. I also do mindfulness and mindset training. I work with essential oils. I've spent a lot of my time over the last 10 or 11 years working in schools with students and student athletes with athlete groups, sort of bringing this element of wellness into a younger group as well. And that's all changed a lot in the last little bit with everything that's been going on. So it's kind of cool, you know, all of the hard things that are reality from this pandemic that we're in. It's also offered me a lot of gifts too, and time and space is one of those to just bring some of these other things into fruition and sort of, you know, as we continue to change and evolve, shift focus a little bit and get creative. And that's been really fun. So that's sort of where this is coming from too. So as we go through this, I do have the chat thing up on my screen. I'm not super proficient yet at like talking and working off my notes and seeing the chat. So I apologize if you say something and I don't get to it. I will try to do my best, but also feel free to unmute yourself, and dialogue is great, right? If you have a question or something you want to address. I am going to run a slideshow here in a second too. So before I turn on my slideshow, I just want you to do one thing. And that is just get comfy in your seat wherever you are. Try not to have your body parts crossed. So if your hands are crossed or your feet are crossed, just uncross everything. You can rest your hands just on your thighs or on your chair, whatever's comfortable, and just close your eyes for a minute. And if you want your face on the screen, that's cool. If you want to take your face off the screen, so whatever you feel good with. Awesome. So just breathing, okay, just kind of settling into your space. You can kind of imagine that you're almost in a little bubble. And so there are probably going to be distractions and things that pop up, but it's like nothing can permeate this little sacred space that you're creating for yourself for the next 90 minutes. And then I just want you to imagine for a minute that you are like a fairy godmother and you have a magic wand. And when you wave your wand, you have the ability to create whatever you want. Okay, so if you can visualize yourself, maybe you look like the fairy godmother, maybe it's you in your comfy spot, maybe it's you in your happy place. Visualize yourself, wave your wand, and in your mind's eye, see this thing or this feeling that you want. You're all here for a reason. You are probably here because there's something that you're thinking about or you're wanting in your life. So I want you to see that right now in your mind's eye and see if you can connect to some of the senses of that thing or that feeling. So if you want greater financial freedom, feel the money in your hands, the bills. Okay? If you want a vacation on the beach with your family, smell the salt water in the air, feel the sand in your toes. If you want a deeper relationship with your spouse, feel the warmth of a hug, feel the eye contact, see the eye contact, right? Just really getting into the feeling of these things. And then just take, I don't know, 2 or 3 more breaths, nice, big, slow, big inhales, big exhales. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. I am going to share my screen with you. So if you're just taking a second to come out of that, that's perfect. Okay. So hopefully you can all see this. Maybe Suzanne, can you give me a wave if you can see my slideshow? Okay, perfect. Okay, so the reason that I got you to do that off the start is because we need to dream, okay? So there's a difference if you go online and you're reading or you're looking at definitions of goals and dreams and even intentions. There's some things people say that are different about them, right? Goals are the action items, the action steps that we're taking to create something that we want in our life. Whereas dreams are the thing, right? They're almost in our imagination and they're never going to happen unless we take the action with our goals, the action steps to make that dream happen. But I kind of come at it as like, really the things that we have goals around are related to our dreams. They are our dreams. They might be a little bit smaller. They might be sort of like the stepping stone to that thing, but it's that thing. And unless we can imagine and get a little playful and creative and take all the limitations out of, well, I'm not going to think about that because that's not realistic or whatever. Like we just got to let ourselves play with that creative, imaginative space and let our dreams be our dreams. Okay. The reason I think that goal setting, traditional goal setting has been really hard for me is because I get into that dream space and I'm enjoying the creativeness of it. And then I come back to this really linear kind of structured thing. And it doesn't necessarily jive with how my brain operates and how I operate as a person. So what you were just looking at might have been like a big dream, but I want you to just think about the goals that you have in your life. If they're compartmentalized in two different places, are those goals related to getting you to that big dream? And they probably are in some way, shape, or form, even if you don't know it yet. So when we look at traditional SMART goals, you've probably heard of these before. I was an athlete. Man, we set so many SMART goals. And I was a teacher and I taught SMART goals. And I've been a coach for 20 years and I've taught SMART goals. And it was only in the last little while that I was like, man, is any of this really even like, I wonder if I could go back and talk to some of those kids that I taught or those athletes and like, did those actually work out for them? Right? Because we went through all these action steps and maybe we revisited that goal once or twice, but I have no idea. And for me, most of the things, if I think about them, that I have worked this SMART goal philosophy of, they didn't come true, right? Whatever the thing was. So what I have found is that our traditional SMART goals, although they're very specific and they're supposed to work and get us through those action steps that we need to achieve these goals and dreams, they're very linear. They're also very impersonal. And there's a real like one size fits all model around this thing, this SMART goal format, right? It's just, this is the way it is. There's no consideration for my strengths, how I operate as a person, how I feel, what has happened in my past, where I'm at in my journey, right? There's none of that. And all of that for me is critical. It makes us who we are. It, you know, and we can't discount that stuff. So I had a friend say to me the other day in business, she's like, let's have a little chat about your goals for 2021. And I could immediately just feel my body tighten up. And I was like, whoa, geez, Diane, like you have a serious resistance to this idea of goal setting. And I realized it's because it doesn't align with my holistic perspective and how we live and operate day to day. What works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you or for the next person or the next person because we're all so different. So this sort of impersonal, linear, one size fits all approach, I'm like, wow, this has not been effective for me at all. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean it hasn't been effective for you. However, this is the perspective that I'm coming from. So like, we're complicated, we're multidimensional, we are feeling beings, right? We have body, mind, spirit. We have been shaped by our past, by our experiences. We've got DNA in the equation. We learn and grow totally differently from one another. We've lived in different physical environments. We have likes, we have dislikes, we have different strengths and weaknesses. There's so much that plays into how these things come through for us, right? And I don't know, there's a really cool TED Talk, I believe it's Mel Robbins, and she talks about the likelihood that we were ever even born as we are as 1 in 400 trillion. Like, that is amazing. So that's taking into account all these things, right? So that means that there's no other person like us, wired like us on the earth, times, I think it's about like 7 times over. Like, that's exponent, that's like into the cosmos, right? How unique we are. So why this perception that this one method should work for all of us? It doesn't make sense to me. We are also, and this is sort of on a different thought process, I guess, but we're also physiologically, mentally, emotionally wired, right, to keep ourselves feeling safe. And anytime that we're stepping into a goal, something changing, something different, something maybe that might be a little bit hard, these processes kick into gear, and they are trying to keep us safe, but they actually keep us stuck. And this is the part that is really tricky, right? Because we can be doing all the work and all the things and being so structured with our SMART goals, following up everything. But inside of us, there's these processes going on that are like, no, not feeling good here. This is a little weird. We're just going to pull back. Okay. So I was talking to this on this point with somebody the other day, and they actually said to me, well, then, like, why do we even bother if they don't necessarily work in this way, and there's all this stuff inside of me that's trying to keep me safe? Like, why do I even bother setting goals? And I've gotten into that headspace myself. But I want you to know that there is hope. Okay. And this is where I've kind of put this together, is because there is hope. These goals and dreams that we have are there for us for a reason. And if we have them, it means we can achieve them, right? It wouldn't percolate up into your intuition like, oh, I think this is important for me. That little voice in your head, it knows. Or maybe it's in your heart and it knows. So if it's happening, that thing is possible for you. Okay, so there is hope. When we rework our goals so that they have a more holistic scope, they're not so linear, we really open up the process of goal setting. Okay, it's very holistic. So we're looking at all the different parts of ourselves and how that plays into getting these things that we want. It's really, really rooted in how we feel, because it is feeling that moves us. Okay, small side story. I recently moved. I did not expect it to be a life-altering event, although it was something that I was looking forward to and we'd been working on for years. The standing on the back step of this house that I'd lived in for 13 years, that I'd raised my babies in, I'd been sick in, I'd recovered in, like, lots of stories in this place. I just stood on the back step and started to cry. And I've never felt more appreciative of the experience of those 13 years in that house than in that moment. And there were so many times that I was like, oh, I'm so sick of this place. We need more room, blah, blah, blah. All of that. The feeling that bubbled up in me was so amazing. And it has, like, just opened up all this other stuff. Different perspective on how I see things, different ability to feel things in the moment. And I know that that moment for me is moving me forward because I'm still rooted in the feeling of appreciation and gratitude that I had for that time and that space. So the more we can feel, really feel, like to the point of like you start to cry, you're feeling it, or the smile erupts on your face in a moment where you're just like, oh, awesome. Okay. This holistic framework of goals is rooted in that. Okay. Because we are feeling beings. It also facilitates knowing ourselves better. We get, peeling off the layers, getting into the stuff that keeps us stuck or scared or limited, right? We got to get into that. So we're looking at those subconscious blocks. We're looking at how our nervous system is operating and how that's keeping us stuck. And then all of this together, as we work away at this little by little by little, this becomes part of our life. And so this is the process, right? The linear structured things, they might still be there in the background, but until we get into this deeper stuff, the layers, the understanding, the continual commitment to move ourselves forward, that is where we will see our goals come through. So there is hope, okay? So I want to talk really quickly about the nervous system, because this is one thing that really does play a big role in why we maybe haven't met our goals in the past. So if you, I know one of the things that I kind of advertised about this was that, if you're feeling like, why would I bother setting goals? Because the ones that I set before didn't happen. Okay, that's where I was. Why would I waste this time and do all these things? Because it's not going to work. Okay, this is because it's not your fault that you didn't meet those goals. This is part of how we're wired. Okay, our physiology, our nervous system has a job to keep us safe. And in keeping us safe, it often keeps us stuck. Okay, so one of the interesting things that I've learned about, how we're wired and how our nervous system works is that whether we perceive something as an actual threat, so like the tiger running through the jungle approaching us, real threat, or I pull out my phone and there's a text message from my friend that I interpret as, oh, she's maybe not happy with me or whatever, right? That's all in my mind. That's perceived. But our body and our brain does not understand the difference. So what's happened in our current day and age is most of the things that stimulate our nervous system are actually daily hassles, right? Oh, there's another bill to pay. Oh, I'm a little nervous. Maybe I don't have enough money in the account. Nervous system fires, alarm systems go off, stress hormones are released, body-wide changes happen. Okay, text message from my friend. Oh, she sounds kind of mad at me. That's scary to me. Alarm bells go off. It's all the same. And it impacts everything. It impacts our physical health. Okay, this is where we start talking about like the effects of chronic stress. It's not so much that we're being, run just like totally exhausted. It can be that, but it's also just how wired are we in that continual perception of things being threatening or scary to us, because that pushes our nervous system off into that same fight or flight mode all the time. Okay, so when you think about a goal, like I said, it's usually something that's maybe a little bit scary, maybe a little bit different than what you're used to. Typically, these are things that are pushing us outside of our comfort zone. When we perceive that as threatening, our nervous system moves off into, I'm going to run, I'm going to flee, I'm going to fight, or I'm going to freeze. Most of us women will flee or freeze. Okay, men are not always, but if someone is going to fight, it is usually a male, because of think about way back evolutionarily speaking, they would have been the ones to go out into the jungle and fight the tiger, and so that's still there in our DNA. Not to say that women won't stand up and fight. Okay, again, no one size fits all thing here, but typically, as women, we either freeze. So we're like, oh, that's a little bit scary. I'm just going to stop. And so there's the goal over here, and we're just stuck. Okay. Or, well, that's a little bit scary. I'm going to run, like run the other way. So I work a lot with nutrition, and you might have experienced this, you know, if you have a goal or something you're working on about eating better, and maybe you have a few really good days, and then something triggers that nervous system response, and we head straight back for the chocolate or the sweets or the chips or whatever it is, right? That's not working for us. It's not our fault. Okay. This is how we're wired. Now, that's not to say that we can't start to work with our nervous system, to work with how we perceive things so that our nervous system isn't as likely to automatically fire to the fight or flight response, right? And we can work with this. Nothing is fixed in us. We can change, okay? So there are practices and strategies that we can use that will help us to shift this, but it's not going to happen immediately. It takes some practice. It takes some time. Okay, so we're going to talk about that a little bit more. This is just one big thing that I think people need to understand, because we beat ourselves up. I didn't meet my goal. I'm a failure. I don't deserve this, right? All that stuff comes up. That shapes everything for us. That shapes how we live. It shapes how we interact. It shapes how we approach new challenges. So we got to clear out that this is not your fault. If you didn't hit a goal, it's okay. Okay, now you understand part of the reason why. I think that's really important. The other thing that plays into effect here really, really powerfully is our subconscious mind. So if you look at this picture of the iceberg, okay, that little bit of the iceberg up on top, which if you're out on the water or on the land looking out, that's what you see, right? That is what is visible. If you think about your brain, that's the things that you're consciously thinking. I want to eat better. I want to make more money. I'm going to take a trip with my family. I'm going to, these are the things that we're aware of that we're thinking. Okay. But look how much of that iceberg is under the water. That is your subconscious. And 95% of our thoughts are actually happening in our subconscious mind, and we are not aware of them. Okay. So 5% conscious. I'm going to do this. I want this. I'm going to do this. Subconscious is all the other stuff that's happening, and it's wired into our, like, we have neural pathways that are firing, and this stuff is just going on in the background all the time, and we don't even know it. Okay. The other thing is that about 80% of those thoughts that we're having underneath the surface are the same as the day before. So these things are wired in us. You could call them habits, right? They happen. It's like when you go to tie your shoe, or you go to make coffee in the morning, or you go to get in your car, you do the same things in a sequence, and you don't even have to think about it because it's wired in, right? And that's what these thoughts are like. So this is where the whole conversation around like limiting beliefs, subconscious blocks come in, because sometimes we don't even know they're there. And as soon as something triggers that, then we get into that stuck mode again. So an example for you is, I have this goal that what is the goal? I lost my example of a goal. So think about your goal that you're trying to achieve. Okay. Maybe it's a little bit scary. Maybe there's a feeling of like, well, what if I don't get it? Am I a failure? And then your subconscious mind is kicking in, and it's going, oh, I think we've encountered this before. And it's like you go through all these files that you have stored in your memory, in your mind. Your subconscious goes through, they find the file. Oh yeah, this is when she tried this and she was criticized and felt like a failure. Oh, and we didn't like that feeling. Yeah, that felt really bad. Okay, so we're not going to do that again. We're going to go back into like a safe zone, and we're just going to like not venture any further. We're going to take a different path, right? So our subconscious is working also to make sure that we're safe. It's all designed to keep us safe. And yet we have to be able to move through this stuff if we're going to achieve these things that are maybe a little bit scary, maybe a little bit off in the distance, but they're important for us. Okay. So again, we might be going, oh my gosh, well then what the heck? I've got my nervous system, I got my subconscious working against us. What do we do? How do we go work through these things, right? So this is where I've created holistic SMART goals. And they're not necessarily specific, measurable, achievable, you know, all that. I sort of threw that out the window because it wasn't working for me. Those things might still be there though. And I also talk a lot about like learning styles with people, and personality traits, right? So for me, I am not a logistical strategy minded person. So all the strategic planning stuff that are in traditional SMART goals doesn't necessarily align with me. That doesn't mean to say that if you are really logically minded, very like structural, very A-type personality, it doesn't mean that you have to toss that out. But these are things that you can add to that, okay? So when we talk about the S, we're going to talk about small, manageable changes and daily healthy habits. Our M is mindfulness and mindset. I'm going to talk about each of these a little bit more, okay? A stands for awareness, R stands for reflection, and T stands for talking it out, okay? So the reason, hold on one sec here. I just want to make sure I'm on my, yeah. Okay, so the reason we want to work with small, manageable changes and daily healthy habits is because they have the ability to change how we feel physically, okay? And a lot of us need to start in that physical dimension because that's what's here right now. Okay, we can get grounded in that. We can feel things happening in our body. We notice changes, and that sets a foundation for us to move forward from. Okay. When I think of daily healthy habits, I go to nutrition because that made a huge impact for me in my life earlier. But I also know through my training the amount that what we put in our body affects everything. It affects how we feel. It affects our energy, our hormones. It affects how we think. It affects what's happening, what's firing in our brain, the neurotransmitters that are working. It affects everything, okay? So, but if we looked at, you know, okay, well, this is what I'm doing right now with my food, and this is where I want to go. If that change is too great, if there's too many things that are different, we go straight into, this is scary. I tried this before, it didn't work, I'm out, okay? So we want to make them small. So for example, instead of just a fruit, maybe you have like a bowl of fruit on your counter, put a vegetable bowl on your counter, okay? Have a goal to have one of each every day. Most people can do that. Try adding lemon into your water in the morning. It's great for digestion, it's cleansing for the liver. Something that you can do every day, small and manageable, right? These little small manageable things create a trickle effect, and they will gradually, if you're consistent with them, build into, oh, okay, I did that. I succeeded. I feel good about that. Well, now maybe I could do this, okay? And they grow. So this is really where we address like the physical element of, I have to feel good. If I'm going to go after these things that I want, I have to have the energy to work through all the other stuff, okay? We've got to feel good. Mindfulness and mindset. The M and the A play together a little bit, but they are also different. So if we're going to achieve our goals, we have to be more mindful and more aware of where we're at in the moments of the day. And we have to be able to rewire our initial perception of things that are happening that are going to keep us scared and stuck. Okay. And mindfulness has the ability to do both of these things. I like the definition of mindfulness that is simply paying attention to something in the moment on purpose without judgment. So, one thing that I often have to clear up for people, because we have, I think, this idea that mindfulness means 30 to 60-minute meditation practice every day. We have the image of like the monk sitting on the mountaintop in the clouds. Like, yes, I mean, that would be something that would be amazing if we could all do that. But in reality, that's not going to work for all of us. There are many different ways that you can practice mindfulness in your day, okay? If you have 5 minutes or even 2 minutes where you can focus on your breathing and get into your senses. I feel my feet on the floor. I feel my seat on the chair. I feel my shoulders. away from my ears. I feel my clothes on my skin. I feel my breath in my nostrils, right? Getting into the senses of the body. I smell my candle. I can hear my kids in the other room. All these things, okay? That is a way that you can practice mindfulness, and it only takes a couple minutes. You can, and if this is something you want, let me know. I can send you an audio that I've recorded. You could have a mindful eating exercise where you eat something really small and pay such close attention to that experience. You could go for a mindful walk, right? You can even train mindfulness. And Natalie, if or any of you else that, or any others of you that are involved in sport, use a tennis ball and have people practice mindfulness because they have to be so focused on catching and releasing the tennis ball at certain times. So there's so many different ways that we can essentially train this into our mind. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about more of that after, but in essence, when we are mindful, we can notice our mindset. Okay, so I can be mindful of like, oh man, I was just really annoyed with my kids right there. I was pretty snippy with them. Okay, without judgment. Okay, that happened. Have some compassion for myself. I'm a busy mom. Why did that happen? How was I feeling? What brought that on? Okay, or maybe the goal that you're working towards is around, say you want to lose 10 pounds. Automatic things are firing, things are wired in, right? You just open the cupboard, reach. Okay, whoa, stop. Why am I doing that right now? Am I actually hungry? What is it that I want? Do I want something sweet? That can be related to affection and love, right? How am I feeling about myself? How am I feeling about in a relationship that I'm in? So we have the ability, when we're more mindful, to just be like, whoa, okay, I'm just going to notice this. Okay. So that really then also impacts our awareness. We are more aware of ourselves in our space. We are more aware of how we're feeling in a moment. We're more aware of our interactions and understanding that a lot of the interaction things that send us off into that stress mode, it's not ours. It's not about us. It's their stuff. And so we can let that go, right? It allows us, both the M and the A really allow us to know ourselves on such a much deeper level and create space for us to just kind of analyze that. Like, why is this happening? Why am I feeling this way? And when we understand stuff, you guys, about ourselves, we have the ability to, again, it's like those layers, right? Okay, I'm just going to dig into this a little bit. And that's where we get into that subconscious stuff too. So as we peel that stuff back, we release it, and it allows us to move in a different direction. Okay, so the M and the A, again, not happening overnight in one's, this is something that we work at over time in little pockets here and there, without judgment, with curiosity, with compassion for ourselves. And it's probably one of the most transformational pieces to getting you to that thing it is that you're dreaming about, okay? Another piece that we talk a lot about is reflection. And it's interesting to me that this doesn't actually come up in traditional SMART goals, because there are a ton of business models that incorporate this like self-reflective process into professional development and growth for companies, right? So they're, basically prescribing to their employees that reflection, daily, weekly, whatever, is part of their personal growth, and then impacts the growth of the company, right? So just with how much traditional SMART goals are used, I was like, well, that's interesting that it's not included in that framework, really. But this is another piece that's critical. So I'll just share with you my favorite method of reflection is following a short period of however long, right? I usually try to sit between 20 and 30 minutes a day, but it doesn't happen every day. So maybe I went for a mindful walk, or maybe I only had 2 minutes, but I do my best to at least write something down after every time. Because as we are mindful, like I said, we open up space. We give ourselves a greater mental capacity and a platform to understand ourselves on a deeper level. And we want to be able to pull that stuff out. And writing has been researched, journaling, reflection has been researched as really assisting this process and helping these things come to fruition. In terms of our physical health, it also has been shown to reduce levels of inflammation in the body. So when I was dealing with my ulcerative colitis, I was prescribed 20 minutes of journaling every single day. And there were days that I didn't even have anything to write about, but I just had to write free. And it's actually amazing. If you try that, sit down and just start writing every single thought that comes into your head. It doesn't have to make any sense. It's pretty crazy what comes out sometimes. But this reflective piece is critical, right? It helps us with our level of understanding. It helps us as we move through the process, right? Oh, that was scary. I had this reaction. I reflect about that. And then I can go back and I can learn, right? I can continue to learn about how I'm reacting, what I'm changing, how it's feeling. The reflective piece is huge, okay? And then the last part is talking it out. And this is really plain and simple. We need support. Maybe the word that comes to my mind, and it doesn't resonate with everyone, but it's a mentor. Okay, someone you trust, someone who's an ear, someone who will not judge you, but someone who won't let you get into your typical subconscious wired responses to things, right? They have to be able to see that. So, maybe just be thinking who that could be for you. Think about people you admire. Think about people that are influential for you as a person. I don't mean like some crazy Instagram influencer or whatever, but someone who's influential for you, that you admire, that you aspire to be like. And be, I guess this is a little bit smart goalish, but be diligent in talking to them, right? If you have to, maybe you have to pay for this. Maybe you need support through someone who's professionally trained or a coach or something like that. But this is really critical for us because it's very easy for us to slip back into our patterns of safety, right? We get it back into a limiting belief. We get back into, that's scary, so I'm going to stop. And these people can be so critical in just helping us be like, you know what? I see that this is happening for you right now. Where is that coming from? Okay, let's dig, right? Let's get into that a little bit, and then let's move through that as you're ready. And for a long time, I was like, no, I don't need to. No, I'll just have my journal. I'm just going to figure this out for myself. I will tell you that everything changed when I hired a coach. And I've had some exceptional business-minded, exceptional women in business, leaders, people I thought were very strong, driven women. I'm like, oh, I want to be like that. I didn't actually want to be like that. So I found someone that really aligned with me and my heart-centered approach and my holistic approach, that it has just been amazing, right? So finding that person is a really important part of this process. So it looks a little different, right? And I know I can think of some people, and it's actually just my perception of what I think they would say, which is just my story and crap coming through. So we won't get into that. But for some people, they're like, this is way too woo-woo. This is fluffy. We have to do the work if we're going to achieve those goals. It doesn't matter how specific your goal is, how many things you've written down, unless you have a way to work through the hard stuff that comes up, it's just going to stay there. It's going to stay as a goal. Okay. We have to dig in. We have to feel this. This is truly a process, if you think about it. And this is the big difference I find between the traditional SMART goal. I write the stuff out. There it is on my wall. I see it. It's like, it's out here. Okay. This is about the process. This is what gets you from where you are now to that thing. And without that link, it won't happen, okay? This format of holistic goal setting works because we are deeply ingrained and engaged in the process. And it's a process that has so many rewards, right? And I'll just, small story about myself. I had ulcerative colitis for 11 years, and this is really what started me, I guess, on my wellness journey and learning about holistic nutrition and meditation and yoga and all the holistic therapies that I could try and figure it out. And it got to be in my 11th year of dealing with this disease that I was feeling like I have tried everything. I was super strict on my diet. I was doing all the things and it wasn't working. And I was also very much engaged in this process of learning about myself, like on a deep level. And it came up in, I don't know when it came up, but it came up that like, Diane, maybe it is time for you to consider surgery. Because for those of you that don't know, that a colectomy, so your full large intestine is removed, is a cure for ulcerative colitis. So I'm like, maybe it's time to think about this. I had a couple of different naturopaths that I really respected. One of them was actually one of my teachers, and I went to see him for, I was having a really bad flare. And I said, at what point, and I can just feel myself, this person, this version of myself almost makes me want to cry. At what point do I consider surgery? And he looked at me from across the room and he said, you never consider surgery. And I was just like, what? Like, how can you, this holistic practitioner that's like all about the whole person and no person is the same, how can you look at me across the room and say that? And so that was really hard for me because I really respected this person, but it made me tune into, no, Diane, this is what is right for you. I could feel it in my heart. I was terrified. Like this was like, I could potentially lose my life by having this surgery. But I knew in my heart and my intuition, everything was aligned and I knew that it was the right thing for me to do. I did it. Lots of conversations around what life would look like, having an ostomy, probably not being able to have children naturally, all this stuff. I just did it because I knew that it was the right thing for me. And I will tell you that my life has been absolutely 100% healthier, happier. I was pregnant 3 months after that surgery. Like I still sometimes I'm like, wow, how did this all happen? But I know that part of it is because I trusted myself. I knew it was right for me. And the only reason I knew that is because I was so ingrained in this process. I wouldn't have said that curing myself of ulcerative colitis was my goal. Maybe it was a dream, but it happened. And I'm like super healthy and happy now. I'm so blessed. But I believe it was because of this whole process that I was doing. And anything in my life that I think about that has been like big changes, the dream, not just a goal, the dream has happened because of this process. Every single time, this is what I've been doing and I've been just working it, right? And the whole like putting a timeline, I couldn't have put a timeline on that, but I was consistent in working through the stuff that I needed to work at, and it's going to be different for all of us. Okay, so now I've been talking for a long time. I don't even know what time it is. Oh my gosh. We're going to dive into this a little bit. So I want you to please grab, like take a drink of water, take a sip of tea. If you have a candle, if you have an oil you want to sniff, and you're going to get back into that comfy spot, feet on the floor, or you can be laying down. I find that challenging because I tend to fall asleep, but somewhere comfortable, okay? Sorry, I'm just organizing my notes. I'm also going to have a little sip of tea. Okay. So just getting into a really comfy space, and we're going to start a little bit with that, the imagining, okay, a little bit of the mindfulness, and then we're going to follow that up with a little activity. So this will just take a couple of minutes, okay? So when you're sitting comfortably, you're going to close your eyes again. You're just going to start noticing how you feel physically in the moment. So maybe you could feel your feet on the floor. You can feel your seat on the chair. Perhaps you can feel your back, your shoulder blades resting against the back of the chair or the bed or the floor, wherever you are. Okay, feel your clothes against your skin. And then just for a moment, allow your sense of hearing to just radiate outward. So you can almost, it's like you're trying to hear the furthest thing that you can imagine. Just let that be really expansive. And then slowly start to bring your sense of hearing a little bit closer in towards yourself. So is there anything that you hear outside the door, maybe somewhere in your house? Is there anything you hear in the room? I can hear my diffuser bubbling, right? Just things that are close. And then in your mind's eye, see yourself in the space that you're in. So you can visualize the four walls, the ceiling and the floor around you. You can see your chair. You can see your body positioned, sitting, relaxed, comfortable in your chair. You can see your clothing, your hair, your face. Okay, so getting very connected with just yourself in this room, your physical feeling in the moment. Okay, and then you can just sort of turn away from all that or just let that be and start to focus more attention on your breathing. So if you can imagine your breath starts at the very tip of your nose, you're going to inhale, you can feel your breath move up into your nostrils, you can feel it slide down the back of your throat, into your chest, your lungs, down into your belly. And then when you feel that you're full of breath, just allow it to flow out of you. And then you're going to continue that process. So breath comes back, focus on the tip of the nose, breathing all the way in and really feeling your breath in your body. What is the temperature? What moves when you breathe? Do you feel things expand? Do you feel your body contract? Okay, just continue that process, a couple more rounds of breath. This time when you breathe in, when you feel that you're full of breath, just pause for a second. Just feel full. And maybe take in a little bit more air. And then just let it go. And when you get to empty, pause again in that empty space. Feel really still. Okay? And then when the feeling of the need to breathe bubbles up inside of you, just start again. So as you're breathing, just feeling really relaxed, nothing else to do. Okay? Just planting a little seed in your mind about what it is that you want. Why are you here on this call right now? What are you looking for? And try not to think about that too hard. Just like you would plant a little seed. You delicately place it in the soil, you cover it over, you give it some water, and then you let it sit. Okay, so all you need to do for a few more rounds is breathe. And just let that little seed rest in your mind. And something may pop up. Maybe you have a visual image that comes to mind. Maybe there's a feeling that comes up, something that you're looking for. Maybe you know right away. Maybe nothing comes up. That's okay. If you find that something pops into your head that you you kind of distracted all of a sudden with a thought, that's okay. I just notice that that thought is there. Maybe imagine it's like a cloud, right? Your mind is the sky, the cloud floats in, and then it floats away. And then come back to your breath. So you're going to finish this little short exercise with 3 more rounds of breath. And just think about allowing these breaths to be the most organic, the most fulfilling, the most inspired, energized, peaceful breaths that you've taken all day. And when you feel that you are ready, and there is no rush, because most of you, I can't see your faces anyway. You're just going to slowly open your eyes. I will give you a minute before I start this, but I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. And you are going to free write about what you want. Okay, you're welcome to write about anything that popped into your mind while you were sitting. Okay, just write. Don't judge it, not right or wrong. Maybe it won't make any sense, doesn't matter. Just put it on the paper. Okay, so I will start my timer and I will call you back when 3 minutes is up. Away you go. Okay, so that is 3 minutes. So maybe just finish up whatever thought it is that you are on. And I, initially when I was planning this out, I had in there like, would anybody want to share what it is that they're looking for? And it's super cool if you would like to share, unmute yourself. And if it's personal and you want to keep it to yourself, that is okay too. Any takers? Okay, well, the floor is open. If you want to comment, feel free at any time.
I would be willing to share.
Who's that?
Denny.
Awesome.
You want me to just read it then?
Sure.
Okay.
Or share in a, yeah, whatever you feel better with.
Okay, I can just type it in, or do you want me to read it, or?
Oh no, use your voice. It's nice to hear
Okay.
voices other than mine.
Okay, well, I got a whole lot of things going on in my life. So the first thing that came up, I put, what do I want? Peace. I want to flow. I want to be authentic, me, unrestricted. I want my shoulders out of my ears. I want to have feelings without explaining or searching for why. I want to smile. I want to not feel so tense that I will snap. I want to have faith that things will be as they should, that I am real, that there is hope. I want to worry, accept, and let it go. I want to accept myself.
Wow. Denny, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think like you are obviously feel like that's coming from your heart. That is feeling in that, right? I can hear it in your voice. I think everybody else on the call would agree. Like we can feel that. And that's where this stuff is so powerful, because it comes from such a deeper place than worrying about how specific or timely, or is it something that's attainable. It's because it's inside of us. And so all these things that you're working on, if you considered traditional goal setting, like how would you specify that, right? It's not, but it's all so critical to who we are and how we live. And thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else?
Diane, I'll share
Yeah.
a little bit.
Awesome.
I had a reaction kind of as soon as you said, I guess I felt frozen as soon as you asked what our goal was. Like the visualizing, the breathing, the focusing, that all felt really good. But as soon as you said, now visualize what your goal is, what you want, why you came here, like that kind of a thing, it was immediately, I felt frozen. There was all of a sudden that pressure to know. And the thought that came to my head was that I was here to help figure that out. Maybe I'm not in the right place for me. Thoughts of escape, flee. But then you said, it's okay if nothing comes in. And I was like, okay. But it was that whole flight reaction for me was like, this is the wrong space. I need to leave this. I need to leave this space where I need to know.
Yeah.
So obviously that was stuff that came up, right? And then I relaxed again and was able to, de-stress a bit. But anyway, that's what happened with me.
That's really, well, I'll say that's cool, but I know that cannot feel cool in the moment. But it's like, that's, I think, a really big piece is that we can get into a place where we're like, no, I need to know, I need to know, I need to go get it, I need to have it. What am I work? Like, if we try too hard, it can actually create more stress for us. And then we end up over here in the, like you were saying, there's the, I'm ready to, no, I don't want to be here. This doesn't feel good. I'm out. So what I would suggest, Suzanne, is like, just if you have a few minutes every day, just kind of come back to this, like sit, take some deep breaths, kind of find a quiet space, make yourself as comfortable as you can. And then just imagine like this is just a seed. Okay. Every seed, every plant, they have different germination times, right? It's just like, you're just going to have that there and you're going to care for it. And when the time is right and you've been able to just in your mind and your subconscious and stuff sort of work through gently some of those things that are coming up, then it will appear to you. It will just come. But if we're in a place where we're like digging and I gotta get it, right, we're working so hard for it, sometimes that can actually push us off in the opposite direction than we want to go. So just be okay with not knowing. And that can be related to a whole other bunch of stuff that's underneath, right? Like, I need to know, it's a validation thing for me. I have to be in a place where I can have answers to things. It's okay not to know. Just trust that you're in the right space and you're working through the things that are there. And when it's the right time, it'll come. And I would keep journaling about the, like, if, like what your responses, like, what is the response? Is it that I'm a little uncomfortable, I don't want to be here, I don't like this, like, just write that all down. Thanks for sharing. Did anybody else want to mention anything? Okay, well, thank you for working through that process, taking the time to write that down and sit with us. So I want you to think back to the S. Okay, so whatever it is that you wrote down, think about the S and a small manageable change or daily habit that you could implement that would make you feel good. So, I mean, something that I like to do that invigorates me in the morning is I love coffee. I love my coffee. So I'll have my coffee. And I also have a glass of hot water with either squeezed lemon juice. I also like to use lemon essential oil and some cayenne pepper. And that's very invigorating for me. And I know it's doing a lot of good cleansing work inside. So that's a way that I like something small that I do every day that helps me feel good. Getting outside is another one for me. I know that my day is better even if I take 10 minutes to get outside of the house and feel the wind or the sun or whatever it is on my face. Those things are, oh, I just got a thing, my connection is unstable. Hopefully that's not affecting things. Those things impact how we feel. They affect our vitality. They affect our willingness to sometimes do the things that might be a little bit harder or take a little more energy. So those things are really important. So see if you can brainstorm one or two things that just small that you can add in that you can do every day. So I don't necessarily tell myself that I'm going to get outside for an hour every day, because even though I'd love to do that, it's not necessarily something that I can manage every day. And then I get into, you didn't do it. That's so bad. You're a failure. Like, we want to not get into that space. So just keep it small. Okay. And as you start to feel really good about that, you're like, oh, I've been doing this. I feel my energy is better. I'm happy outside. Then maybe you add something else a little bit to it. Right? And so these things. So thinking about one or two things you can add that will help you get into a place where you feel good. So you're working towards that thing. The M, okay, the mindset, the mindfulness, the awareness, we just started working on that in our little sitting session that we had, breathing. Like I said, mindful eating is very cool. It is a very cool activity. It could be as simple as when you sit down for a meal, maybe you pray before you eat. That's a beautiful mindfulness practice. See if you can extend that into the meal. So you're really focused on the taste, the feeling, like your saliva in your mouth, the smell. Mindful eating exercise is a very different way, but really tangible mindful experience. Mindful walking, okay? Coloring. If you've seen those like mandala coloring books or cool pictures, coloring or art can be a beautiful mindful experience too. You can really, here's one I love, mindfully unloading the dishwasher. Mindfully brushing your teeth, right? We can add these little elements in. Like I said, I can't see all your faces, but do any of us love unloading the dishwasher? Christine, I see your face. Right? Can you be mindful when you unload the dishwasher? One thing at a time. This is all I need to do. There's nothing else going on, right? It's really cool. So little things that you can do to practice that stuff every day. If you're able to give yourself 2 minutes where you can sit down and breathe, beautiful. If you're looking for an app or something to support you with this, my favorite, and Christina, when Lindsay was talking about Insight Timer the other day on your Instagram chat, I was like, yay, that's my favorite too. It was one of the first ones I was introduced to. It's called Insight Timer. Has some beautiful guided meditations, mindfulness practices. It's a really cool, and I believe it was when I got it anyway, it's free. I think there are things you can pay for to add on more to it, but it's really, really nice. Another one that I think is really good for beginners, is one called Headspace. I believe there's a free trial with that. Eventually you have to pay. It's like a monthly thing, but might be something to just try. Okay. And if you need other suggestions or anything like that, just shoot me a message after this and I can give you some more tidbits there. But when we're working on that stuff, we're getting into the mindset, the awareness, and those are going to be so important, right? For keeping us along our track and getting into some of that deeper stuff that we heard we're already working through, right? When you were writing these things down. The reflection, okay, you practice that in your writing exercise. Depending on how you learn, and I don't know if you've ever done the learner assessment, but like some of us are very auditory, some of us are visual. I like to feel pen and paper. Some people are more inclined to typing. Some people actually record their voice, their reflections, audio, and then listen to it, which is, or video, right? You can just talk to yourself on screen. We have all these really cool tools that can help us with this right now. But try to be reflective. And when you notice that you're coming up against something, give your spouse even just a minute to like write down what it is. I got off this call and she said something that really aggravated me. I feel very hurt. Boom, like scribble it out, record your voice on something. It's a really, really valuable exercise to be able to reflect as we go through this stuff. And actually, if you can flip the page in your journal, I have another really, I love this exercise that you can do as a reflection, but also as just something to make you feel good. Because again, we're more likely to work through things that are uncomfortable when we are coming from a good place, right? So if you flip your journal page, and I'll make you write this down now so that you do it, or you're more likely to do it, put tomorrow's date on it. And at the top, in whatever beautiful or big bold letters or whatever feels right, write my successes. Okay, and then if you can, ideally, little exercise like we just did, like a couple minutes breathing, getting into the senses, feeling grounded, feeling in touch with yourself, and then free write, list everything, your successes. No defining parameters on that from when you were a baby to now, and then read through it after you write it all down. One thing that I've been learning about is just elevating our energy and coming from a place of creating more happiness in our life is really powerful in terms of, especially when we're moving to something that can be a little bit tricky. So this is a cool exercise to like recognize, like, wow, look at all that I've done. So often we come from a place of lack, right? Oh, I need this goal because this and this and this is missing. Well, what about all the amazing things that you're doing all the time that you've done in your life, right? We need to be recognizing that stuff because that's actually the platform that's going to springboard us into, I feel good. Now I can work to this, right? If I'm like, oh, I'm missing, I don't know enough money. I don't talk to my husband enough. I feel really, like we're just stuck. So we got to elevate our energy and thinking about what you've done, where your successes are, what they are, is a really cool exercise to do that. So everybody on this call is going to do that tomorrow. That's your homework. And then the last piece, right? The talking it out. So I would just encourage you to consider someone that you can reach out to that can help you with this. Because all of us sometimes just need, it's like a different set of eyes, right? We see everything, we feel everything from this body, from these eyes, from this heart. And sometimes another perspective, who is not going to ever judge you, that comes from a place of love and wanting to support you, can make a huge difference. And they can also be someone that you go to then when you're like, look, I'm just really stuck with this. I can't get past this part. Sometimes just talking to somebody about it can be the thing that you need to start to work through that. So like I said before, sometimes that's someone you know already. Sometimes it's someone you need to seek out. Maybe in your work or your business. Maybe it's a close friend. Maybe you look into hiring a coach that works with mindset, mindfulness, lifestyle, you know, all that stuff. There's a lot of options out there. Like I said before, what I have discovered is that this step of being like, I actually want someone to help me with these things so that I can move into that next element for myself. For me, this was big about worthiness, right? I was always like, oh, it's too expensive. I can't hire a coach. Too expensive. We have other bills to pay, things to do. Like paying that bill was like, the bill for my coach was like, wow, I just invested so many dollars in myself because I'm worth it, because it feels good. And, you know, there's a whole other thing about that, but it was a step that I needed to take to get into the next layer of stuff, right? So I guess your other homework would just be like thinking about that. Maybe meditate on that a little bit. Have that in your mind as your question when you go into your 2 minutes of mindful breathing. All right, these things will start to come up for you. And that's pretty much the content for our little chat around holistic goal setting. I would like to be able to open the floor if you guys have any questions, any thoughts, anything you want to share, any aha moments, any takeaways, things that resonated, things that you were like, oh, not for me. It's all good. I've been talking for a while, so I'll stop for a minute. Anyone? Okay, well, I won't pressure you. It's all good. I just want you to remember this, that, you know, when I think back about where I have come from in my life, and if I can get to where I am now, then every single one of you that's on this call can get whatever it is that brought you to this call. What I've found is that we usually have this little intuitive voice in our mind, right? It's working all the time. We'll have a little thought, it'll pop up, and we are pretty good at brushing it off. Start to listen to that little voice, because it knows what your heart's desires are. It knows what you want. It knows what you need. And so start to come from a place of trusting that little voice and getting to know it a little bit better. And it will guide you to where you need to go and the time that you need to do it, and just trust that that process is going to happen. Because I have not done anything special, I don't think, in my life. I know that I was super sick. I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. And so I knew that if I wasn't going to be able to live my life the way I wanted it, and that spurred me to make some changes. But it took some time, right? It's a process. Just come into it with that understanding that none of it is going to happen immediately, but your commitment to just getting to know you and what's really in your heart is going to take you where you need to go. And then there's that whole analogy about, I think it was one of my favorite little Will Smith Instagram clips that I saw, where he was in a plane about to go skydiving and so nervous, right? Like so scared to jump out of the plane. But once he jumped, he like was just like in the most amazing, happy, euphoric, like just amazing space, right? Flying through the air. And then he came down and was like, wow, you know, the hardest part really was jumping. So I think the thing that I love about this perspective on goals is that a structured traditional goal for me is threatening because of stuff that I got to work through. But when I look at it in this way, is that it's all about me growing me. And as I do that, the things that I want are going to happen. It's a much safer space to start working towards these things. And if I can do it, you can do it. So with that, I really, really, really want to thank you for coming today, because this is like the first time that I've just created something of this nature and put it out there. And I'm just so, like, my heart is so happy about the response that you guys showed up to take the time for yourself and to come and listen to me for a little while. So it really means a lot to me. If you have any questions, okay, I love to chat about this stuff. Shoot me a message. If you're ever on my website, it's djwellnessconsulting.com. There is several buttons actually on there where you can click and it'll take you to a calendar. We can book like a free, just, 15-minute chat about things that you're working on, or if you have questions. But yeah, it's all there. And if you need anything, I am here as you are diving into this stuff. So thank you. I will just hang on for a minute. If you have anything you want to pop in the chat, or you have any questions you want to ask or anything while we're still on the call, I will stop sharing and I will stop recording. Yeah.